Hello, every folks, and good morning. Welcome to another edition of Know Your Fried Chicken. Today we talk about the Heretic, Kashua's unique kind of Chapter 4 class there, and yeah, this one has expanded so much that it's not even funny. So let's go ahead and get into it here. So in order to get this class, you have to get Heretic marks, which, yeah, just look at the One Vision resource if you want to find out how to do that. Long story short, any kind of situations that are there for Kashua to do evil stuff, you can probably find them in those situations. Moving on. The Heretic is basically the evil counterpart to the Princess, essentially allowing her to do all of the stuff that you wished she could do in the other versions, and then like 100 more things on top of that. So let's go ahead and get into it here. First and foremost, the most important question that everyone's obviously asking right from the get-go. Can she be a dagger specialist? Hell yeah, she can. She can equip basically just about every dagger in the game, and additionally gets access to swords, gets access to one-handed katanas, two-handed katanas, still gets the cudgel, still gets the whip, still gets the spell books, now gets instruments. She is all about the being dark, because what's more dark than being able to play some metal, I guess. In this particular case, I have her set up with an Armageddon spam build, because hell yeah, I'm gonna set her up in the Armageddon build. And then we have her running Fearful Impact to go get a nice opening together with that whip, as well as Entomb to go give somebody the ability to go turn stealth mode. Basically, yeah, if she ends up getting threatened, she goes and entombs and suddenly becomes invisible for a while. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get into it here. So what does she get access to? What does she learn? Well, right off the bat, she'll get access to Covenant, which is the same thing that the Lich gets. It's their ability to swap MP between themselves and their party members, allowing them to sort of average out the MP or absorb MP from everybody nearby them. Additionally, Iron Maiden has been changed so that they end up doing a standard dark attack and having essentially draining it as health. Now, the thing was, when it came to the HP steal back in PSP, for the most part, it could pretty much only ever do 1 damage on, like, barring edge cases where it suddenly became a threat, because it basically bounced off of armor. It was basically a first tier missile spell that was bouncing off of armor that had this additional effect. When it came back again in Reborn, it wasn't resisted as much, so it didn't have as many issues. In this particular case, Iron Maiden is basically taking its place, because the HP steal in this version is actually a percentage-based thing. However, in this case, it is a touch-based spell that's basically leeching health as a direct dark damage attack. So effectively, I think any kind of drain health kind of punch ability from Elder Scrolls, and that's more or less what's going on there. They come with Absorb MP for the usual shenanigans of either denying MP or funding yourself. However, in her case, she's probably funding her absolutely astronomical amount of spells with it. Additionally, comes with Reflect Damage, Tactician 1 and 2 to make use of her offensive action abilities, Opportunist for getting away from knights, Max TP, I mean, it's here, it certainly exists, Trajectory for the purpose of maybe aiming her spells a bit better, but additionally could potentially be useful in the case of some of the less accurate spells. Anyway, moving on. Wade if you want to put her in the water, Jump if you want to put her on a roof, Wards for the usual kind of shenanigans, nearly full access to efficacy and complete access to clarity, giving her insane amounts of efficiency as far as her spell costs go. Counter hit for being able to hit back with some of her weapons. This is especially useful if she ends up getting attacked by any finisher spammers and she happens to have her katanas on her. Instill Shadow, because she's super dark and edgy like that. She can augment all elements, though realistically she only uses dark for the most part. Gets access to parry, but no deflect. Racial ability-wise, gets access to Golemy, Phaetonology, Orology, Demonology, Sacrology, Draconology, Herpetology, Teratology. And then weapon-wise, she gets access to daggers, katanas, 2 HKs, cudgels, whips, spellbooks, and instruments. And then spell-wise, she gets Dark Magic, Draconic Magic, and Necromancy, which she can basically run side by side, because again, this is not the PSP version, where essentially you had to back up every one of those things and potentially have way too many passives to make a skill list work, or in Reborn, where you typically were limited to 4 spells and then whatever spells were on your items. Now, go ahead and debate whichever you'd prefer, but holy friggin' Christ, look at how many spells she's carrying around. So here, let's go ahead and actually go to the browse list instead. So first of all, as far as dark magic, she gets like fucking all of it. There's almost, I think, Shadowfax 2 and Shadowfax 1 is apparently where the line was drawn, but she gets everything else. Whether you wanted Abyss for hobbles, Dead Scream for frightens, Wormhole for percentage damage, or going past several of those to doing poison and weaken bursts, or doing large dark missiles, or potentially doing dark summons, or large AoEs, or heavy missiles, or any of those kinds of things. She's got range, she's got power, and my goodness, she's got a hell of a lot of dark spells. However, that's only one part of the list. She also gets access to Draconics, getting access to the unique Grim Dawn. I forget where Grim Dawn drops. That's something you'd have to find in the list. But apparently it does damage in an area of 10. Essentially just being a gigantic dark nuke, more or less, costs 120 MP, as well as setting up 99 recovery time. So basically, if the fight doesn't end when this does, something went wrong. Anyway, so moving on, we've got Thaumaturgy for Spellcraft and Resilient, Spellguard to give you a negate on one unit, Soul Harvest for being able to steal TP and use it to refill HP and MP, Teleport, Springboard for the usual purposes, Agony to deal as close as you are to the middle of your health bar in set damage. For those that have never tried Agony before, it is a completely fucked powerful ability if you know how to use it right. Now, in her case, she does have a decent amount of HP, but I will say she doesn't use Agony as well as something like the Warlock does. So the main reason that Agony works so well on the Warlock is they have some finer control over their HP bar. So, for example, if they were to go use something like Distill Life, they would be able to get themselves potentially closer to the middle of their health bar for potentially hundreds of extra damage. In Kashua's case, she's basically just rocking whatever she's got at any given time. This can potentially do a really solid set amount of damage. This is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best anti-armor abilities in the game, just due to the fact that it is just a technical number. So if, for example, she was hit for half her health, she could potentially do, like, what would that be, like roughly 380-ish in terms of damage. That is just a guaranteed amount. Then you've got Demon Rage and Demon. For going and hitting with Draconics. This is especially powerful if you have a good weapon on her. Draconics will use the weapon's power for their penetration, so this means that she can potentially do can opener level damage to a large amount of heavy units in the right circumstances, and Draconics are comparatively pretty cheap for their power. They are something that's typically going to be pretty available. They're very short range, but they are extremely strong. So, for example, you might have noticed that she didn't get access to Shadowfax earlier. This is just a better version of Shadowfax. It costs more, but it's fine. Actually, does it even cost more? Let's go ahead and double check. Because I think Shadowfax... No, they cost the same. Basically, it's just a shorter range version of... A shorter range, higher power version of Shadowfax. And then, finally, we have Necromancy, because she didn't have enough spells already. So we've got Living Dead, Banish, to just instantly kill a single... Or to just... get rid of an undead unit. Curse for its usual thing. Frenzy, which will give Quicken to an undead. Rebuild, which removes all debuffs and basically just, it's a full restore on an undead unit. Tainted Love, which gives Bewitch. Torment, which gives Pain Aura. That feels like, that, honestly, that debuff could be its own different video there. But basically, whatever's hit by Torment, it's whatever damage they take is reflected back, which also stacks with other reflect abilities, and I believe might... I don't... Actually, come to think of it, I don't know... I think this is technically counted as a debuff, so I'm not actually sure... I think this actually can stack with Spike Skin, so I wonder how high that reflect damage can go. I feel like that's going to be a video for later. Any particular ways? So yeah, Torment is potentially a way to weaponize one of your own units for massive reflection damage. Life Force is going to drain health and convert it to MP like he usually does. Putrefy is just going to do the anti-healing kind of thing, and then Black Plume for allowing you to turn into a bird. Stick Shift for teleporting around your dudes as you do. Now, that said, like, this is a crazy amount of spells that's already on this unit, and this is before we've even gotten into the dark stacking that she can do. Arguably, she potentially could be the best dark user in the game, and in many cases, I would say she almost definitely is. Which means that she is also incredibly good with something like Armageddon. So yeah. For those that have never tried it before, it is effectively going to be a large AoE kind of situation where you're going and hitting for extreme amounts of TP scaled dark damage there, which again, she's basically training all the time. Additionally, you've got a Dark Whip here, though in some situations it actually does end up coming out more powerful to run double augments for the purpose of something like Armageddon spam. See solo run for those shenanigans. Like, for a long time, I was running Aegir as well as Aug Dark and Aug Water, because it was just stacking both of those augments at the same time. And additionally, due to the fact that this says Fall Strike and something like, for example, Ogre Helm has Fearful Impact, she basically can activate the helmet to guarantee a Fall Strike and Fear on something, and then immediately follow that up with, potentially a big ol' HP and MP steal or something like that. Just opens up their defenses a lot to be, potentially completely ruined. This is especially handy versus something like monster units, which obviously don't have a whole lot of defense to begin with. And funnily enough, her Crimson Necklace still remains pretty solid throughout the entire game, with pretty much everything that you'd like on there, including a Silence Ward. Now, what's interesting about her equipment access is that it is basically anything that is edgy that she's allowed to equip. So she gets access to most helmets, she gets access to anything that isn't Divine Aligned, she gets access to crowns, she gets access to medium helmets, dodgy helmets, spell hats, she gets access to pretty much all robes and most heavy armors. She doesn't get access to, for example, the standard heavy armor or the mechanized heavy armor, but she still gets access to the mid-tier heavy armor. She gets access to all the robes. She gets access to the Thanatos, but not the Ogre. Gets access to Alluring as well as Garb of Sages and the Mirage Cloak. Again, she's got a very unique loadout of very specific things that she can equip. Additionally, glove-wise, she gets just about everything in here as well, including if you wanted to... Actually, wait. No, she doesn't get the bracer hook. For a second there, I thought I saw the bracer hook on there. I was like, man, that'd be perfect to have her zip around all Sekiro style, but apparently not. And then shoe-wise, she gets access to most shoes, though, interestingly enough, not alluring high boots. Apparently, she's a bit too edgy for that flirty type of stuff. So yeah, she is no longer a priest. She is no longer a stripper, apparently, but she is apparently very knightly in her choices of other leg armors. Not sure what that's about. Anyway, so yeah, that's the Heretic in a nutshell. This is going to be a unit that's all about the dark and edgy, all about hitting hard with a lot of very specifically heavy spells, and additionally is surprisingly close range orientated. Unlike Reborn, instead of focusing on AoEs, in her particular case, she is more so focusing on direct, like, just ripping throats out in her own right, so to speak. If she ever has issues with MP, she has multiple ways to go steal it from friends and enemies alike, and can make pacts with demons if she chooses to. Additionally, let's go ahead and see. I believe there's actually some skills that potentially can be transferred over to her. Specifically, I remember there being... Let's see if it's still here. Obviously, all racial abilities can go over. I remember her at some point being able to do more Reflect, but I think it's only whatever she can learn herself. Maybe that was an earlier patch or something. No, because she can't learn Tactician by herself, so that's not necessarily anything. Weapon-wise, she can naturally learn everything that she can already get access to, so I don't think that's a thing. And if you're thinking it's unusual for her to have access to so many weapons, Funnily enough, this is actually something that the princess started back in PSP. Essentially being a case where the princess got access to an absolute ton of different weapons, but they never told you about it. So, for example, like Princess in other versions has the ability to use axes, has the ability to use swords and whatnot. Until Reborn happened, they just didn't tell you. They're just like, I guess if you turned her into a warrior, got rid of her unique class, and went out of your way to go get more class marks, I mean, I guess you'd find out that they had it there. And then for some reason, when it came to the Dark Priest, they just got frickin' nothing. I guess in PSP, it was very strange because, like, in PSP in particular, again, they use a dagger in a cutscene, and they won't even give them that. They did finally give them access to daggers in Reborn there, but like, actually, did they even? Now that I think about it, I wonder if it was just hammers. Either way, for some reason they just refuse to let her have daggers. But yeah, this time she not only gets daggers, she gets access to those swords. And all of these swords, remember, are also assisting in making those draconics hit especially hard. So, you know, better swords are the better in her case. Can't use anything light aligned, but for example, side-graded swords are going to be massively powerful in her hands. We've got the big 2 HKs here as well that are also going to be pretty solid. Just absolutely tons of options in her hands, though. Again, draconics with one-handed sword side grades, like the Caliburn, is probably going to be one of her strongest hitting options in terms of making those high-end spells hit like a truck. So yeah, if you've got stuff like, what was it? Not Cerberus, what the hell was it? What spell was it? It's really confusing hopping between all these different versions. If anyone's ever wondering why I get so dang confused and just randomly forget stuff, it's because I'm constantly jumping between these different versions, like, ah, shoot, which one's this one? But yeah, Demon and Demon Rage there, these are the ones that are going to be scaling off of weapon power there, so just give her a big old heavy sword, and I'm assuming, like, I like to picture that she's doing the kind of a classic RuneScape thing of just, like, stabbing the sword in the ground, and it just explodes in a very dinky AoE that inexplicably does a ton of damage, but it sure doesn't look like it should. Anyway. So, that's kind of about that. That's the Heretic. They're pretty straightforward. They have many spells. They have many good weapons. They have really fantastic equipment access. And, yeah, you actually want to use her in this version. And I love the, I love how both OV and Reborn came with such wildly different answers to, again, the same assumptions of why didn't they have this in PSP. In this case, like, oh, you know what? She needs to be more close range and offensive. She gets cool weapons, she gets cool armor, and here's all of these crazy spells. And then in Reborn side, they're like, what if she was a Death Blender? You'd love to see it, because this is a class that's been iconic for this game since the very start. It was on the box art of the SNES version, for Christ's sake, and you couldn't even use it in that version. And then, yeah, it finally shows up in PSP, and they're like, basic caster with slightly higher stats and way shittier spell access, I guess. How's that sound? Anyway, so that's about that. Hope this was helpful. And yeah, give the shout. Ow, shoot. Maybe don't hit my elbow on a door frame. That really hurts, actually. All right. Anyway, y'all have yourselves a good one. Take care. Bye.